In a move that has sparked both concern and speculation, US President Donald Trump declared on Friday that he would walk away from the United States' efforts to mediate an end to Russia-Ukraine war if either Moscow or Kiev obstructs progress towards a resolution. The bold statement has sparked questions about whether this signals a strategic pressure tactique or marks a deeper shift in American foreign policy. As global leaders weigh in, the implications of Trump's remarks could reshape the dynamics of the ongoing conflict and redefine US involvement in one of the most critical geopolitical crises of the decade. All of this and more in today's episode of In Depth. Stay tuned. The United States will abandon efforts to end the war if it proves impossible to broker meaningful progress in the next several days, said Secretary of State Marco Rubio in remarks that piled pressure on Kiev as he departed Paris on Friday. As reported by the New York Times, it was not entirely clear from Rubio's remark whether he meant that the US would merely abandon its effort to reach a 30-day ceasefire or abandon Washington's commitment to Ukraine altogether. Additionally, Rubio said Trump has spent 87 days of the highest level of this government repeatedly making effort to bring this war to an end. In response to Rubio's comments, the Kremlin signaled it was in no hurry for a ceasefire, a consistent message from Moscow throughout Trump's attempts to end the war. High-level talks on Thursday between American, European and Ukrainian officials were the first of their kind, intended to bring convergence between views of the war in Washington and European capitals. Rubio said the conversations had been constructive, but it appeared clear that Trump was losing patience, according to the newspaper.
As the United States threatens to withdraw from the Russia-Ukraine peace talks, serious questions arise about the future of the war and whether Washington's withdrawal would leave Russia and Ukraine alone to shape its trajectory. US President Donald Trump and Secretary of State Marco Rubio have indicated that without tangible progress, the US may pull back. But if that happens, can Russia and Ukraine carry the peace process forward on their own? Privately, US officials have acknowledged that a swift peace deal now appears unlikely. Trump, who once vowed to end the war within 24 hours of taking office, has already pushed that goal to April or May. Yet, the conflict continues with no resolution in sight. Russia claims it's pursuing peace while defending its national interests, with the Kremlin pointing to some signs of progress. Ukraine remains actively engaged as well, describing the recent talks in Paris as constructive. However, while both parties attended US-brokered negotiations in Saudi Arabia, a breakthrough remains elusive. With frustration mounting in Washington, the risk is growing that the US could abandon its role as mediator. If the US steps back, it risks not only prolonging the war, but also losing influence over how and when it ends. The future of the war may soon lie solely in the hands of two nations still deeply entrenched in combat.
Right, delving more into the topic, we're joined from Pennsylvania by Mr. Malik Francis, political analyst and member of the Republican Party, and from Moscow we're joined by Ms. Olga Krasniak, professor of international relations at the National Research University. Good afternoon to you both, and welcome to Qnews. Let me start here with Ms. Olga. Now, Dr. Olga, how does the Kremlin respond to Trump's remarks threatening to abandon peace efforts and demanding clear progress within days?
Russia is not the country which can accept any pressure or even acknowledge any pressure coming from anyone. So, and it's not in from America's point of view or perspective to end this war. So they might facilitate, they might make quicker the process of negotiating and ending the war. But it's not up to America to decide because what we have Russia's national interests at stakes. So, and of course, Russia acknowledges America's certain attempts to mediate this conflict, but still, it is up to Russia to decide when it will be stopped and when Russia's interests will be concerned and acknowledged and actually respected by Western countries.
Mhm. Mr. Malik, from your point of view, what exactly are the demands the US require from Russia or Ukraine to consider the peace talks as making clear progress?
Good afternoon to you and to your guest. Unfortunately, President Trump is not a peacemaker because a peacemaker should be very patient and cannot threaten either side. It's time for him maybe to change his thinking or to allow his representative, Steve Witkoff, who has some kind of diplomatic experience now from Gaza now to Ukraine and Russia. President Trump promised that he will solve the Ukrainian-Russian war in 24 hours. Unfortunately, it's not going to happen. He has to show respect. He must respect both sides. And you cannot deal with President Putin, who is the smartest and the strongest leader in the world, treat him like you treat Zelensky or any other leader. It's time for him really to start thinking of peace, not hell and threatening that he's going to open hell if nobody listens to him. Yes, he's arrogant. Yes, he changes his mind every 5-10 minutes. But that's not how you make peace, how you bring peace, how to build bridges between two warring factions. Maybe it's a good idea if he will call for an international peace conference, and he has to allow our friends and our allies in Europe to get involved. No, he's selfish. He wants to get all the credits. He wants to say that he's the one who brought peace, and he's dreaming of maybe getting the Nobel Peace Prize. I don't think he's going to get it anymore, but that's his dream. But we have to get our friends and our allies involved in the peace process and treat everyone equally and respect the people you deal with.
But maybe he has certain demands from the Russian and the Ukrainian side, so he can decide. But we'll get to that, Mr. Malik. Let me go first to Dr. Olga, and we'll come back to you to discuss that. Moscow claims it is open to dialogue. Now, what specific steps has Russia made recently to demonstrate its willingness to resolve the conflict so far?
Indeed, Russia is open to peace talks, and it was open since the beginning of this conflict in early 2022. But just only on one condition, when Russia's interests are considered. So without any concessions, without any conditions coming from different countries. But what exactly Russia did just recently, just a few minutes ago, maybe 10 or 15 minutes, Putin announced ceasefire just for a couple of days. Less than 4 days, because tomorrow we have a very important religious Easter celebration. So yes, that would be a first step, and
a good gesture.
Yes, it's a good gesture. So we will see how exactly Ukrainian side will respond. Well, the Orthodox Christians as well as we are. So, and we'll see. So what will be from the other side?
All right. Happy Easter to you. I have to say that. Dr. Malik, as we said, that he might have, or the Trump administration might have some of the demands. And while Trump threatens to exit the peace negotiations, maybe it's a kind of strategic pressure tactics, or it could mark a deeper shift in the American foreign policy. What do you think?
I think President Trump plays games, and everybody understands him worldwide. And you cannot play a game with President Putin, who is to me, he's one of the smartest men. I don't agree with his policy in the Ukraine. I think it's time for him to stop the war, and I really thank him for stopping the war now, a ceasefire for a few days for both the Ukrainians and the Russians to celebrate Easter, and happy Easter to everyone. Hopefully, there'll be peace after Easter, and the ceasefire will continue. Now, yes, President Trump always has demands, has stuff for himself. Like sharing the mineral rights in the Ukraine, and he wants who knows, half, 50%, whatever, and he wants the Ukrainians to pay for all the arms and military equipments that President Biden sent to the Ukraine. President Biden sent it for free. He did not really ask for any money. But President Trump, as you know, he's a businessman, and he loves money. And all he cares about money, unfortunately. Here we need to work for peace. Peace in the Ukraine, Russia helps the whole world. It brings the price down.
Yes, but what do you think he is demanding from the Russian side? Because Mr. Marco Rubio was not just speaking to the Ukrainian side, he was also speaking or addressing the Russian side as well. So what kind of demands do you think the Trump administration needs to see from both sides here for the cause itself, not for the interests of the United States?
Peace helps the interests of the United States, Russia, Ukraine, and the whole world. Because if the war keeps going on in that part of the world, it may start World War III. It's very dangerous. What he demands from Russia, from President Putin, that to stop the war, and he said that he may recognize Crimea as a part of Russia, and this is wrong. You cannot give the land that you don't own to someone else, as he did in the Golan Heights. He gave it to Israel when he was president first time. This one, it's going to be negotiated. He cannot force Ukraine to give that part of the Ukrainian territory to Russia. And this is unacceptable, and that's not how you bring peace and you stop the war and the bloodshed in that part of the world. It's time for President Trump to stop offering land or whatever to someone else than the people who owns it, like it's a Ukrainian territory. And I don't think President Zelensky agrees with him, in spite of all the problems they are having now. President Trump doesn't like Zelensky. President Putin doesn't like him. Both of them don't want to work with him. So maybe the Ukrainian government should have a representative to speak to both President Trump and President Putin.
Dr. Ugra, spokesman Peskov said that talks with the U.S. Are difficult. But do you think Russia's insistence on securing its interests in those talks is not prolonging the war?
Well, indeed, because like I said, we insist on respecting our interests. And if we look back, even just before 2022, even during this first Trump administration period, so they already started to supply Ukraine with weapons. But that time, Ukraine was attacking Donbas. So, and they called these territories separate territories, and they launched an anti-terrorist operation back then. So before 2022. So, and without finding certain solutions which caused this conflict from the beginning, not in 2022, but long before, I think it would be impossible maybe just to stop the war by now. And understanding what Russia wants, and Russia explicitly says what it wants. So it's a neutral status for Ukraine. It's non-enlargement NATO to Ukraine. So and all these things they are primary importance for us, and so it is something what we are very consistent. It's something what we say all the time. So, and in this case, so maybe we should look what is happening on the battlefield. Well, maybe with a couple of days ceasefire, but still, I believe Russia will continue this field operation in the battlefield. So, because our position is very strong and just starting from this strong position in the field, we might move to a diplomatic part of the negotiations.
But Dr. Melik, let me here get back to you and reiterate the same question here. As the Russian side is saying that talks with the U.S. is difficult, as I asked Dr. Olga here, do you think that the Russian side's trying to put issues for its, or to put its terms for its interests is not prolonging the war? What do you have on that?
I believe that President Trump and President Putin should meet face to face in order to solve the differences they have between them. Yes, I think President Putin and his foreign minister Lavrov are diplomat. They have experience. They know how to deal with their enemies and their friends. Here, unfortunately, Secretary of State Rubio doesn't have any experience. He does whatever President Trump tells him to do, and he won't even dare to work on his own because President Trump will fire him. So President Trump, unfortunately, he controls the government, his cabinet, he controls the Congress, and he controls the Supreme Court. And that's why he believes that he's the strongest man in the world and everyone should listen to him. But President Putin is not a child. He's not Zelensky or anyone else. He is a very intelligent man, and he is experienced, and he knows how to deal with everyone. So I think here it's going to be difficult, yes, because President Trump likes to threaten everyone. He's a bully. He tries to bully everyone, but it doesn't work with Russian President Putin. And that's our President Trump, and he's not going to change, unfortunately, unless he allows Steve Witkoff to do the job for him. And I believe Steve Witkoff could bring peace between Ukraine and Russia. But about the mineral rights of the Ukraine, the Ukrainian people own them, and they need them to rebuild Ukraine. We cannot go and share them with them. This is, I think, unacceptable, and it's shame that President Trump asked for money in order to help anyone. And Zelensky is not the man, really, the person to sit down and negotiate peace. He doesn't. I don't think he has the experience, and he knows how to do it. And he hates Russia. He hates President Putin, and it's going to be very difficult to bring both sides together, Zelensky and President Putin. So it's going to be, yes, you cannot solve anything in 24 hours, as President Trump claims. It takes time, and you have to be patient. And I think President Carter took him a few years to bring Menachem Begin and Sadat to the peace table. So it takes time, but you cannot threaten people. You cannot say, hey, you don't listen to me, I'm going to withdraw. That's not the way you make peace. You make peace by keep talking to both sides, respect both of them, and bring them together. And it's going to be very difficult as long as President Trump uses the stick, not the carrot.
Dr. Olga, if the United States does exit the talks, do you think that Ukraine and Russia realistically can move on with the talks in this upcoming stage?
Well, the position of the United States, indeed, in this conflict is very important because it was the main supplier of military aid and financial aid to Ukraine. And now, with the withdrawal of American parts, so Ukraine basically has almost nothing. Although European support is taking place, but with American exit, so well, I think it would be good news for Russia because we definitely would be strengthening our position even more. And with no money and no weapons coming from the United States.
And I'm speaking here about the peace talks. I'm not speaking about the sides and who would win and who would not. So if the US walks away from the talks itself, the peace talks, do you think that Ukraine and Russia can really negotiate in a simple way without Washington involvement?
I do not think that we will be negotiating with the Ukrainian side at all, because it will be Ukrainian surrender. So they must surrender. Here is no different way. And I still would insist on something. What is happening on the battlefield, that would be a decisive factor. So, and without any help from anyone coming to Ukraine, so Ukraine has no nothing, just to resist Russia. And in this case, well, it would be the position of surrender. So that's it. So we don't need to negotiate with Ukraine. We just put our conditions and end of story.
So clearly, it is the involvement of Washington that is making the talks in progress, so far as you're saying here, or this is what we understood. Now, getting back to Mr. Melik, let me first have your take on that and ask you, given the encouraging reception of Rubio's peace framework in Paris, why is Washington still considering pulling out after what Dr. Olga here said?
I think I believe that all of us are losers. The Russians are losers, the Ukrainians, America, and the European. The war cost billions and billions, maybe trillions of wasted. They wasted those dollars. It could be used somewhere else to help the people of the Ukraine and Russia. And unfortunately, peace is the only solution for that part of the world, for the whole world. The price of food went up, and oil, because of the conflict between Ukraine and Russia. And we have to bring both sides together. Europeans cannot do it. Yes, America could do it, but not with the way President Trump has been threatening people and not respecting his friends or his enemies. So America is not going to pull out of the negotiation. They will keep hopefully work, but they have to work with our allies in Europe, because Europe has been supporting Ukraine.
But
so
if it does, Mr. Melik, if Washington withdraws, what would that mean? Would it mean the end of the U.S. diplomatic involvement in the conflict? Would it mean that the U.S. is lifting its hand from the whole issue? What does it mean, and what will it mean for Russia and Ukraine at the same time?
Unfortunately, the war will go on. More innocent people will get killed, and at the end, the Ukraine will have to surrender to Russia, because they cannot keep going fighting without any military equipment from the United States or any money. And Europe is almost broke. They cannot afford to keep sending billions and billions and sending military equipment. It costs them too much money. So peace is the only way to solve the conflict, and for the Ukrainians and the Russians. And as you know, both of them are almost same people. Same religion, same people. And it's very unfortunate what's going on, because at the end, Putin is not going to stop. And he knows that. He's going to bankrupt Europe, and he may take over Ukraine and make it another state of Russia. And this is, I think, unacceptable, and it might start World War III, and we don't want any more war. Enough is enough.
What do you have on that, Dr. Olga?
Well, I do believe here is just only one way in the case of America's withdrawals. It would be surrender of Ukraine, as it would be a technical and, in fact, de facto winning of Russia. So when Russia definitely achieves its goals, which is wanted to achieve from the beginning. So it is something what we expected. Something I think that would be a scenario which we will see maybe in a few months.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was Dr. Olga Krasniak, Professor of International Relations at the National Research University, and Mr. Melik Francis, political analyst and member of the Republican Party. Thank you both for your deep insights here, and thank you so much. And I guess that brings us to the end of today's episode of In Depth. Many thanks for joining us, and stay tuned for more updates here on Qnews.